there and welcome. You're about to watch a Lakehead International live webinar. It is a great way to explore what Lakehead University is all about. In this session, you'll hear insights and stories from Lakehead professors, staff, and current students. While watching, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. For now, let's dive in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another Lakehead International live session. And today we are going to be covering a major topic that everything you need to know about your Canadian student visa and how to navigate the entire process with confidence. My name is Hartika Narankar, and I'm part of the international team here at Lakehead University based on the Thunder Bay campus. And I'm excited to be joined today by two of our international student services advisors. They work closely with students on a daily basis, and they will be sharing you their expertise, their insights, and answering your questions as we go. So let's just start with a round of introductions. Jennifer, I'll let you start, and then Sarah, you can.
Thanks, Hartika. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jennifer Hay. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant and one of your international student advisors. I was born and raised here in Thunder Bay and look forward all the time to welcoming new groups of students, helping you enjoy our beautiful city and get to know everything and be settled here. So see you soon. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Jen. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us today. My name is Sarah Melvin, and just like Jen, I am one of your international student advisors, and I'm also a RISIA, so that's a regulated international student immigration advisor. Similar to Jen, I'm located at the Thunder Bay campus. We are both born and raised here in our beautiful city of Thunder Bay. We can't wait to welcome you here and have you join us on our beautiful campus as well. So thanks for coming today. We have a lot of important information to share. So I'll pass it back to Hartika.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Sarah. Just to highlight this for everyone, so both of them are licensed immigration advisors. That means that they're officially authorized to support you with your study permit and visa process. So we will be covering or talking about what a Canadian study permit is and when you should apply, how your Lakehead admission status affects your next steps, the documents that you're going to need, including the biometrics and medical exams, what to know if you are doing co-op or just plan to work while studying, processing times, and what to do if you are bringing family members with you. So we have got a lot of ground to cover, so let's just dive in. Starting with the basics. So what is a study permit? A study permit is a document issued by the Government of Canada that allows international students to study at designated learning institutions called DLI. So Lakehead is an approved DLI, which means that all international students must obtain a study permit before they can begin their studies in Canada. Now, if you are planning to come to Canada from outside the country, you will need to submit your study permit application before traveling. Once your permit is approved, you will be able to start your program at Lakehead. And one of the most common questions that we receive is, when should you apply for the study permit? So let's just take a look at that. You can begin your study permit application after Lakehead has reviewed your application and made an official admission decision. That means that once that decision is made, your application status will move into one of the several categories. First up is admitted unconditional. This means that you have met all the admission requirements and your offer is final. Then we have admitted conditional, which means that you have been accepted, but you still need to submit a few remaining documents, such as your final transcripts, updated English test scores, or just proof that you have completed your previous degree. The key point here is that both unconditional and conditional offers allow you to begin your study permit application. So you may also see other status updates in your application portal. Next up, we have incomplete, which means that something is missing from your application and you will need to upload those documents before the admissions team can continue reviewing your file. We have pending review, which means that your application is complete and is currently under review by the admissions team. And finally, we have refused, which means that your application did not meet the admission requirements at this stage. And if your status shows incomplete, pending review, or refused, you are not eligible for a study permit yet. And in that case, the next step is to just work with the admissions team to resolve whatever is holding up your application. And if you see a refusal, you do not have to panic. In many cases, it may just simply be due to some kind of a missing document or a requirement that needs clarification. So once the issue is redressed, you may be able to submit a new application. And it is always just best to confirm the next steps with the admissions office team. Once you receive your admission offer, there are several key documents that you will need to prepare for your study permit application, like a valid passport, your official letter of acceptance from Lakehead University, your proof of financial support to demonstrate that you can cover tuition, and a PAL, a provincial attestation letter, which is applicable for undergraduate applicants, and any additional country-specific documents required for applicants from your region. For graduate applicants, the same rules apply, but you can only apply for your study permit after you have been officially admitted. And currently, if you're planning to attend a public institution, you do not need a provincial or a territorial attestation letter, which is PAL or TAL, when applying for a study permit. Now, next up, I will let Jennifer take the slide and talk more about people who are already in Canada.
Thank you. So our presentation today will really direct you to apply for your study permit in your home country where you are currently residing. However, more and more we are seeing students come to Lakehead who are already in Canada, maybe as a student or here on a different status. So for those of you who are already in the country and have received your acceptance from Lakehead University, you will apply for a new study permit or study permit extension. It's the same process with your new letter of acceptance from Lakehead University. You'll follow the same steps, except for you will say that you're in Canada in your questions, and it will have a specific question asking if you are studying in Canada and transferring to another DLI, which you would say yes to. They do prioritize these applications as they know you need the new study permit to start your studies at Lakehead. So please don't delay applying if you are in the country and already on a study permit. If you're here as a visitor in Canada, unless you're completing a prerequisite, so like your qualifying year or AEP, you're actually not eligible to submit your study permit application in Canada. So you would submit the application as if you are outside of Canada. You can physically stay here and wait for that processing. However, once the application is approved, you will be required to exit and re-enter the country by air. And not through the United States. So it can be a little bit complicated. I know that IRCC prefers if you want to study, you should be applying for a study permit from your home country. And if you're here already on an open work permit, a closed work permit, doesn't really matter. You would apply to change your status to a student. It's very similar to this changing schools kind of scenario where you can apply from in the country and see that approval come. So it's a little bit different depending on what your current status is, but you can apply for the study permit inside of Canada if you're already here. Let us know in the Q&A if you have any questions about that.
Thank you, Jennifer. So now let's just move into the Provincial Attestation Letter, or PAL. This is one of the requirements for study permit applications, and it is a key part of the process for most undergraduate students. So here's how it works. So step one, accept your offer of admission. If you're an undergraduate student, you'll do this through the OUAC, or your Lakehead Student Portal. After that, you have to accept your offer. Our team will send you a PAL request form. You will enter a few details and upload your documents, typically your passport and some basic information. Step 3 is to pay the PAL confirmation deposit. This means that the payment has to be completed before we can issue your PAL. It is non-refundable unless your visa is refused. Step 4 is once everything is submitted and the deposit is paid, we will issue your PAL letter. Make sure that you review it very closely. Double check your name, your address, your spelling, because IRCC will verify all of that when reviewing your application. Quick tip, if you want, you can always find the latest details on our PAL webpage, which is mentioned in the slide. And if you ever need help, you can reach out to our team directly. Masters and PhD students are now exempt from needing a PAL. Now, here's how the deposits work. For undergraduate students, if you have already paid your 500 Canadian dollars confirmation deposit, you will need to top up the $4,500. If you haven't paid anything yet, you can pay the full $5,000 at once. For graduate students, you only need to pay the graduate confirmation deposit of 2,000 Canadian dollars. Now, for those of you who have already received your letter of acceptance, congratulations. That is a major achievement and the first big step towards joining us at Lakehead University. And now that you know where to start and what you'll need, let's just move into our next part of our webinar, which is what happens after you submit your study permit application. But before that, let's just take a quick poll just to understand what the audience's level of academic study is. Let me just launch the poll. Oh. How about we just put it in the chat, everyone? What level of study are you pursuing? We have the options mentioned on the slide. Ooh, I see a lot of graduate and master's students. Graduate, master's, and PhD. That's good to know. All right. So Jennifer and Sarah, we have a lot of graduate students here today. So that's really fantastic. This information will be very helpful and important for them while moving further in the visa process. So with that, let's just begin our next steps. And I will pass it over to Sarah.
No, it's going to be me. I'm going to
Okay,
continue on here.
Jennifer.
All right, so now you have your letter of acceptance sorted out. You've paid that deposit. It's time to apply for your study permit application. Applications are made online, so we'll walk through the steps right now with you. Of course, we always encourage you to submit your own application, gather the information and documents yourself. You can hire a licensed representative to submit your application, like Sarah and I, who hold the license, but it is something that you can do on your own as well. So yeah, we'll go through the next few slides and talk about what you need to do. So the first step is to make sure you have everything you need. You're going to have a scanner or a camera to make the PDF documents of all of your files. So everything will be uploaded and scanned into the application online. They do accept PNG, JPEG, PDF, Word documents, and you want to keep them to 4 MB or smaller. You will note in the uploads there are not a lot of spots for uploading, so you often have to make a cover page and merge documents together into one of the sections, and we'll kind of talk about that in a few slides. You should read the instruction guide. IRCC is constantly changing their processes or their documents or their fee requirements, so it's important to make sure you're reading that guide and knowing what you need. You're going to prepare that online application and, of course, pay the fee online. So you do need to have a credit card or a Visa debit. So once everything's ready, of course, the first step is to go online and create that account. So IRCC has an online portal. The first time you use it, they'll ask you for your email, and then they'll send you a code to actually register and sign up. Once you have that code, you'll get into what we call the GC key applications. So you'll go to the far right side, hit sign up. You're going to create yourself a username, password, and some recovery questions. They now have a dual authentication, so it will send you an email code every time you log in. So please remember the email that you're using, the username, password, and those recovery questions. It can be very frustrating if you lock yourself out of the account and then you're not able to receive your updates and notices. So if you make the account, I always say take a Word document and take some screenshots of those questions in the login, just so that you don't forget the password. So again, gathering those documents, you have your letter of acceptance from Lakehead University. It may be a conditional letter of acceptance, and we'll talk about that in the slides to come. You need to also show proof of finance, proof of identity, a PAL letter for our undergraduate or our English language students, and there are some country-specific documents that are only pertaining to you specifically. So the letter of acceptance, Hartika has kind of gone through the steps and when it's okay to proceed and when it's not okay to proceed. But you get this from Lakehead University. It will have our DLI number, the program start and end date, level, and everything else in there. So please make sure you check it over and everything looks correct on your end. If you have any questions about your admissions, the undergraduate and graduate admission contact information is right there. So please feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions. If you've already reached out to them and are just waiting, please just be patient. I know it is a very busy time of year for them. On your letter of acceptance, you may have conditions. It is already May. We're getting close to the 4 months before classes start here, so we don't really encourage waiting to meet your conditions to start the study permit process. You can talk about those conditions in your statement of purpose. For example, I'm waiting to take my language test. That's not going to happen till June. You would apply with your conditional letter of acceptance and show that you have that booked language test in June. Later on in June, when you have your test and pass it, you'll meet your requirements of the program. You'll be able to register for classes. And you can send updates to your study permit application in progress by web form. So now it's June, you want to update IRCC and say, look, I've met my condition and I have registered for classes, and that's just going to help strengthen your application. So proof of funds is probably one of the most important components of your study visa application. In my experience, it's one of the highest reasons we see applications refused. So please make sure you spend some time doing proper proof of funds to make sure you can support yourself. This is probably the biggest concern of our government, is making sure that you can fund your time here in Canada while you study. You will be able to work part-time as a student, but it's definitely not ever going to be enough to cover your tuition and your living expenses. So for proof of funds, you need to have your fees, your tuition fees for 1 year and your proof of living expenses, which is around 22,895 for each person, well, for one person. If you are bringing additional dependents like your spouse and children, you need to show even more proof of funds in that application. So here we'll talk about what kind of documents can you use. You can use multiple documents to submit for your proof of funds. This often does happen. For example, I would have a cover page saying, I'm Jennifer, I'm coming to Lakehead University in September. I have received a $8,000 entrance scholarship. I have made a $5,000 deposit, and now I am showing my parents are going to pay the rest of their fund or pay the rest of my tuition. They provide a letter explaining who they are in relation to me and show their bank statements and obviously explaining what they're paying for. You can see through this list here, there are quite a few different ways you can prove your proof of funds, your own funds, your parents, bank loans, student scholarships and awards, a GIC, which is a guaranteed investment certificate. Any of these items or multiple of these items put together would be able to be accepted. IRCC is getting more and more strict. So if you want my suggestion and recommendation, it's to pay your tuition upfront for the year in advance. This is going to show that you're serious about studying at Lakehead University and that you have your tuition fees available. Furthermore, if you stay in residence, you can pay residence upfront too. So then there is no question about your proof of funds. It's definitely something I recommend looking into and making sure that you're meeting the IRCC requirements. If you do submit an application with $20,000 Canadian total in your bank account, they likely will refuse you because that's not enough funds for you to study in Canada. So after the proof of funds and proof of acceptance, you need to have proof of identity. The best thing to use is a valid passport. Your passport needs to be valid for at least 6 months, but of course, we recommend even longer. You will probably study for 2 to 4 years in Canada and then apply for an open work permit for up to 3 years. So if your passport's close to expiring, it can be very annoying and painful to have to renew it inside of the country. So it's quite easy in your home country to get a new passport. So we recommend, if possible, just renew your passport before you even start the process. And then you need a provincial attestation letter, as we've mentioned. This is only for undergraduate students. So once you accept your offer, you're going to get that request for the PAL to confirm if you need it, make that deposit, and then we will release that provincial attestation letter. Just a reminder, if you resubmit your application, you would need a new PAL letter. So if you've had a refusal, that PAL letter is no longer valid, even if it hasn't expired.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you want me to pick up from here, Jen?
Yes, I was going to say, pass it over to Sarah now.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk a little bit about country-specific documents, which was touched on a little bit earlier. So applications outside of Canada are assessed by the visa offices. So each country has their own requirements in addition to the documents that Jen has gone through. So on the IRCC website, you can find the application package that is specific to your country or region. So you'll go and you'll view the drop-down menu and you'll select where you're applying from outside of Canada, and then you'll select your specific country of residence. After that, you'll get a document that looks like the one on the screen here for your region, and you'll have a document checklist and visa office instruction guides, which can be downloaded. This is important, as Jen said, in addition to the general required documents, different countries and regions may have additional requirements. And so it's important that you're including those in your application, and these country-specific guides will list those. So please make sure you're doing that. We'll put the link in the chat during the Q&A. So if we move on, a little bit about entry requirements. So with your study permit application, if you're from a visa required country, you'll get your temporary resident visa. We often call that a TRV. So the counterfoil, the sticker in your passport. So you will receive a passport request, also called a PPR, to submit your passport for visa stamping. You'll have 30 days from receiving this letter to submit your passport for stamping. So please pay careful attention when you do get requests to the deadline that they're providing you. Your visa is your travel document. That's your entry document. That's what's going to allow you to come into Canada. And if you travel home, again, that valid TRV is your entry document. That's what lets you come back into Canada. If you're from a visa exempt country, you may need an ETA. So that's an electronic travel authorization. So the ETA is usually valid until the expiry of your passport. So that's why Jen said it's always important to check the expiry of your passport and get that renewed before any of these processes, if possible. So if IRCC approves your study permit application, they'll issue this ETA automatically. In most cases, you do not have to apply for this separately. It will be issued automatically. So biometrics, IRCC is currently collecting biometrics for almost every country. So you'll pay the biometrics fee with your application, and then they're going to send you a biometric instruction letter. This letter confirms that you will require to do biometrics. So please follow the steps in the letter carefully and visit the VAT closest to you for collection. Again, all of these requests have deadlines, so please make sure you're paying close attention to your account and getting these steps done in a timely manner. So next, a medical exam could also be required depending on your country of citizenship and your program of study. So if you're going to study or work in the healthcare field or childcare, that vulnerable people sector, we recommend that you complete a medical prior to coming to Canada, and then you can include this with your study permit application. Medicals can be done in advance if you know what's required. You just need to be sure that the medical is done by an IRCC panel physician, and a list can be found on their website. You can simply search IRCC panel physicians and you can select your country or region, and it will show you where you can find one. Again, be sure to follow the instructions in the medical request letter and complete the requirement before the deadline indicated, which is usually 30 days. Your medical is sent directly to IRCC by the IRCC panel physician, and you should receive an e-medical receipt that you can upload with your application as the proof of the medical. So a little bit about co-op. So this is the work integrated learning that might be part of your degree studies, and for some it may actually be a mandatory component of your program. Excuse me. Co-op positions are approved usually after you complete your first year, your first 2 semesters. This all depends on your specific program. In some programs, it's mandatory. So for example, our nursing students, you will always have a practical. That's part of your program. You already know that. One important new IRCC policy note is that you no longer require a separate co-op work permit to partake in your co-op or your placement. You will, however, require a letter from the institution that verifies that your co-op was a mandatory part of your program. You can get this letter once you are approved for the placement, and you can keep it for your records to provide if you're ever asked. This letter will likely either come from your faculty or our co-op department. This is a new process that has been just put in place, so we're just finalizing what that's going to look like, but rest assured that we will provide you with the document that you need for proof for your records. Okay, so a little bit about working in Canada. So let's talk about the different types of work. So as an international student, if you're registered with the institution full-time and you have the working conditions on your study permit, you will be able to work part-time while you study. So this part-time work can help offset some of the costs associated with rent or food. But as Jen mentioned, please note that this part-time work will not be able to fund your tuition fees. And so please plan accordingly to have all of those finances in place for your tuition and all of your living expenses. But the part-time work does help to offset some costs, and it gives you some great Canadian work experience that you can have these opportunities while you're studying. We have a wonderful career services center that can assist you after you arrive to review your resumes and cover letter, help you with job searching, interview prep, and all of that, so you feel prepared to get out there into the employment market. The other work in Canada is, of course, after you graduate. So many of our students choose to stay in Canada after graduation, and providing that you've met the criteria, you will be eligible for the postgraduate work permit program. So for our undergraduate students, as long as your program is at least 2 years in length, you will be eligible for a 3-year work permit. For our graduate level students, so it's master's, PhD, as long as your program is at least 8 months or more in length, you will be eligible for the 3-year PGWP. One more quick note that's fairly, newer to graduate students applying for a PGWP. For all of our graduates, I should say, applying for the PGWP, you will be required to submit an updated language proficiency with your application. Please rest assured our department will help guide you through these processes. We have lots of workshops on the PGWP when the time comes. So it's not something that you have to worry about right now, but it is something we like to point out just so that you can plan ahead and be aware that this is a newer requirement. So processing time is a question on everyone's mind. How long will it take to get my study permit? So you can track your application through your IRCC account. Processing times are going to vary. IRCC will send you notifications anytime there is a change in your application. And you can check the current processing times on the IRCC website. You can see an example here on the screen. This will give you an idea. This is important to check because you're sort of in that phase where you're transitioning and will be applying soon. So it's important to know how long it's going to take to ensure that you do have enough time to apply and get an approval before your classes start in September. Okay, so application decision. So your application is approved. Yay. You will be asked to send your passport for stamping, as I mentioned earlier. An approval message will be sent to your GC Key account. Please just make sure you read those instructions in the letter and follow those instructions accordingly. In the unfortunate circumstance that your application is refused, please review the refusal reasons carefully. Decide if you want to ask for reconsideration via an IRCC web form, or if you wish to apply. Most of our students will be doing the reapplication. You'll also now receive more detailed notes on your refusal, and these are called ODNs, or Officer Decision Notes. And this is important because when you receive your refusal letter, sometimes it's a little bit vague. So when you dig into the officer decision notes, it helps you to really understand maybe what you didn't include, or something wasn't clear enough, or you were missing a document. So you need to make sure if you are reapplying that you very clearly address these refusal notes and provide new and updated information. One other important note is that if you receive a refusal, you may also need a PAL. Again, this is for undergraduate students. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us for clarification. And if you had registered for any courses at Lakehead and you can no longer come that semester because maybe you got a refusal and you have to defer, please make sure that you're withdrawing from all of those courses before the deadline to make sure that you are not charged those tuition fees. Okay, so a little bit about dependents. So we wanted to touch on this. Some of our students may wish to bring their spouses and or children when they come to Canada. It looks like we have a lot of master students, which sometimes are mature students. So when referring to spousal open work permits, as per the IRCC policy, only students in a master's or PhD program will be able to apply for their spouses to have an open work permit. Of course, this is providing that you meet all the necessary criteria. If you are in an undergraduate program, the spousal open work permit is no longer available to you. However, there are some limited program options where it might be, and that list is on the IRCC website. So if you are an undergraduate student and you're thinking about bringing your spouse, please look at that list. It's not very long, so make sure you qualify for one of those programs. You can apply to have your children come to Canada with you, either as a visitor or if they're of school age as a student. If they are of school age, you should apply for a study permit for them. And you can include your family members in your original application to come to Canada. So when you're applying for your study permit, you can include their applications with yours, or you can invite them to accompany you after arrival. So some students prefer to come to Canada first, get settled, get things in place, and then submit their family's applications online and have them come and visit them after they arrive. Either is fine. So I think that's it for me, and I will pass it back to Hartika for some post-graduation plans.
Thank you, both of you, Jennifer and Sarah, for that information. So before we move on to our question and answers round, just a quick survey from everyone. I'll just launch the poll. I would just request everyone to just fill in this poll, and just so that we could get your plans upon graduations, just an understanding of your overall plans. So I have launched the poll right now. All right, I can see a lot of the audience members want to work and live in Canada. Some people want to do further studies, which is really good. I'll just give a few more seconds for everyone to answer, and then I'll share the results with everyone. All right, I'm ending the poll right now. So I hope Jennifer and Sarah, you can see the results right now. Most of them have mentioned that they would love to work and live in Canada, which is really good and awesome.
It's nice. And there are programs to help students stay in Canada after graduation, and we'll talk about that as you get closer to that stage.
All right. So with that, let's just begin our questions, the questions part of this presentation. And I could see that there are a lot of questions already in our Q&A box. Some of you are quite big, so I probably won't read it out aloud. But Jennifer, I saw that you wanted to answer this question.
Yeah, first I'm just I know a couple came into the chat, so if you can, please put them in the Q&A just so we don't miss them for you. But the first question asking about when is the deadline to apply for your study permit? Lakehead does not have a deadline, or IRCC does not have a deadline. However, as we've mentioned, you need to give enough time for that processing so that you can get to Canada and start your classes in the fall. So take a look at the processing time by your country that you're residing in right now, and then decide when you should make that application. We don't recommend delaying it. It's nice to have your approval early, and then you can actually decide, plan, get here at a decent time, be here for your welcome day and everything else. So please don't delay that application. If you have your documents already, please submit it as soon as possible. And Adewale, you asked about your passport expiring in March 2027. So if you apply with a study visa with that passport, the longest they're going to be able to issue your visa and study permit will be to next March, so less than a year. You may consider getting a passport renewed before you start that process, as by next March, you're going to need a new passport, a new study permit, a new visa. It's going to be quite expensive for you to renew everything for that short period of time. So I would just recommend doing it right away. Now over into the chat, or to the question. So the first one there is kind of lengthy there. So yes, I'm sorry to hear that you had the refusal of your application. You are on the right track where you want to put the documents in the client information. The statement of purpose and letter of acceptance or letter of explanation could be the same thing, right? I usually, when I have a refusal of an application, when I'm resubmitting, I just update my statement of purpose or letter of explanation. It's the same document, in my opinion. I would say, okay, I'm Jennifer. I was recently refused my study visa application to Canada as I did not have enough funds. Please see in this new application additional proof of funds. I have now paid Lakehead my full tuition upfront. I'm including this and other documents as well. So as Sarah has already mentioned, if you have that refusal, you need to make changes to your application and resubmit it. If you submit the same documents again, you're going to have the same outcome in a few weeks. So please make sure that you actually spend some time revising it and addressing any of those issues that you had in that letter of refusal. And then next from Zifan, okay, so if you're actually in the US, you can apply for your study visa in the US. You don't have to travel back to your home country to apply for the study permit. In the first set of questions, it's going to say, I am a citizen of this country. I am residing in this country. So make sure you answer those questions accordingly, depending on where you're from and where you're currently living. And that will put your application to the proper visa center. So if you apply in the US, your biometrics and your passport stamping will also happen in the US. You also should probably follow the instruction guide for where you're residing, not your country of citizenship, just so you know, because that visa office is going to be reviewing your file.
I'll jump in here for one, Jen. A couple questions came through about you're in a 1-year master's program. Is your spouse eligible for a spousal open work permit? And no, one of the criteria is that you have to be in a master's program of 16 months or longer for your spouse to be eligible for that spousal open work permit.
All right, I can see a lot of other questions. I will read out a few of them, and then probably Jennifer and Sarah, you both can see which one of you would like to answer that. So someone has mentioned my unconditional offer has my previous residence, and I emailed the graduate team to update my current resident in a different country. So applying for study permit in IRCC portal, having previous resident in a different country to that of my current resident affects study permit approval and lead to rejection of permit.
Yeah, so this is why we ask you to be really clear when you do your application, because we think it's best when your study permit application and your letter of acceptance and your PAL all have the same address. However, it is not a requirement by IRCC. So if the address is different, you're not going to receive a refusal because of that, and they likely won't reissue your PAL. So you will have to proceed with what you have. Please ensure in your study permit application that your address is correct, because there is the passport stamping and everything that will take place there.
All right. Next one is about, can I show my proof of funds with money that is currently tied up? I have liquidated money available for year 1 tuition and proof of funds, but my money for year 2 and 3 won't be available until after year 1. Is this problematic?
Yeah, so like Jen said earlier, you have your base amount that you have to show, right? So you have to show that you have funds available for your first year of tuition, liquid funds available for your first year of tuition, plus your living expenses. There is that minimum. However, we strongly encourage you to show more than just the minimum. You need to strengthen your application. So the more you can show, the better. With that being said, it doesn't mean you have to show up front that you have your tuition for year 2, 3, 4, etc. But you do need to make sure that you have those liquid funds available for the first year. More is better. As Jen said, showing proof that you've paid your tuition, showing proof you've made a deposit towards housing. That one's tricky. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But it is important that if you are saying, I have this amount of money available to me for my tuition and my living expenses, you have to convince the officer that those funds are readily available to you. If you've had recent lump sum deposits into your account, sometimes that can be a red flag. Explaining that in your proof of finance section is really important. So you have to come at it with the mindset that the officer knows nothing about you, knows nothing about your finances. And so it's really important to be clear in your financial documents. As Jen said, you might want to do a cover letter if you have multiple things, like you're showing a loan, you're showing parents' bank accounts. Have that cover letter that lists what they are in conversion to Canadian. And if you include a short explanation section to say this is what's attached and these are readily available to me. So proof of funds is really important. That's one of the number one things we see refusals for is the officer doesn't believe you have sufficient funds to support yourself. So that's why we say, yes, this is the base amount and this is what you could submit. But you really need to think about strengthening your application. So the fact that you have funds tied up for years 2 and 3 isn't necessarily a big deal as long as you can show that you have sufficient funds right now.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up, we have someone mentioning about that they can pay tuition fees before visa application. Do you mean the full tuition fees or the first term tuition?
Yeah, so I think that so to be clear, a tuition payment, like your deposit is required, it's mandatory to make, but you don't have to pay your first year or first semester fees to apply for the study permit. You do need to show proof of funds, and we've shown you the list of different documents, and Sarah's just gone over it. However, I am recommending if you pay your full year of fees in advance, then there's no question that you have no proof of funds or that the funds will be transferred or sent to you for your tuition. So there's less chances of any financial issues. I recommend that full first year paid in advance. However, I know it's not always possible for everyone. Even paying that first semester is going to strengthen the application. So please just do whatever you can do for that. And then moving into the next question. So you have a 2-year-old daughter who's also coming to Canada with you. Very exciting. Usually children will start school at 4 years old here. So you likely will apply for a visitor permit for her. After you come into the country, just be mindful of that. Sometimes they will not issue a permit when a visitor enters Canada. They will give you a stamp in the passport, which allows you to stay for 6 months. So that just means you may have to do an extension for your daughter or maybe change her status to a student as she gets a little bit older. So just be mindful of that. And just before I pass it over, I just wanted to address there for you, Yusuf, in the chat. So I understand you have some questions for us. So I'm just going to share with you, we have student accessibility services at Lakehead University. They're a wonderful department that help all of our students with disabilities. So you can kind of take a look on your own to see what kind of service and accommodations that Lakehead can offer you while you study here. I'm hoping that's going to address some of your questions you're looking for there.
Again, I'm just going through some of these questions. One one question, if we pay the full year but then get a visa rejection, do we get the refund? So yes, you would. You can request that through our accounts department. And so that would be international.accounts. You will have to show your visa rejection letter. So be prepared to show proof of that. And then, yes, you would get your full tuition. Again, if you've registered for courses, depending on what timeline we're in, if you've registered for your courses, you would have to withdraw from all of those courses, and then the refund would be provided.
Vishnu, just to follow up with your question there, I'm not going to read this out loud for you, but yeah, you can speak with graduate studies. I mean, if it's a completely different country that's on your letter of acceptance than you're currently applying for, it may be something you want to try to correct. As I've mentioned, it's not a reason for refusal if it's a different address, but that could be confusing to immigration for sure. So in the event that it's not updated, please mention something about that in your statement of purpose. Say, please be advised, I first applied to Lakehead when I was living in blah, blah, blah country. I have now relocated to this country, and that's where I'll be applying for my study permit, confirming your address. And that should be fine and just clear up any confusion for them. Yeah, going from there. Next question coming in asking about the Masters of Computing. So age is not a requirement in the study visa application or guide. However, we do know that the visa offices abroad, you need to really prove to them your plan here. So if I have a master's in computer science and I want to come to Canada to study master's, and I've been working for 10 years as a computer science analysis, and now I want to go to Canada and take the same program, it's not going to make sense to immigration. They're going to say, why would you do that? And what kind of benefit are you going to have? Why don't you just further your education in your home country and so forth? So the further you are from your graduation, you will have to explain why are you doing this new education. Often people do want to upgrade their training. There is different training in Canada that exposes you to other areas of engineering or technology that you maybe weren't exposed to in your home country. A lot of our programs have hands-on components or practical components, which is a really big seller on why you're going to learn new skills or something in this new program. So it definitely can be more difficult to obtain a visa, but I don't think like the age isn't really a factor. You just have to make sure it makes sense to IRCC on what you're doing.
And just a question about, are all the courses 8 months or above eligible for the 3-year work permit at Lakehead? So all of our master's degree programs, none of them are 8 months. They're all 1 year or longer. So yes, they are all eligible for the 3-year PGWP.
Then there are some questions regarding tuition paid fully by credit card, specifically on the same day with multiple transactions. Where did that question go? Oh, I see that you answered it, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. All right. There is a question by someone who is asking for, I have made an application for a TRP, but if it's not approved, I'll need to apply from my home country, and processing time is 8 weeks, and they're presently in Canada.
How long would it take to receive?
Sorry, Hartika, where is this question?
It's at the
Just
top, the
read
first
it too.
question.
How long would it take to receive the acceptance for master's? Well, part of the question is how long would it take to receive the acceptance for the master's? So I'm assuming they haven't like applied for a program yet. So I'm not sure, Hartika, this would be more your
Okay,
area,
yeah.
application deadlines.
So I'll answer it. So basically for any master's for fall 2026 intake, as of now, it might take up to 6 to 7 weeks, depending on the workload currently on the admissions team. So if you apply, it would take that long for your application to basically to become complete, as well as some departments may take longer depending on the program that you are going for. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
There is a question, is GMAT a compulsory requirement before an unconditional offer is granted?
Well, if it's a, so sorry, is GMAT a compulsory requirement for an unconditional offer? Well, if GMAT is a requirement of your admission in the program, then yes, it would have to be completed. So if you were lacking that and provided an offer, it would likely be condition of you completing GMAT or equivalent program. So in that case, you would either have to take the GMAT, meet that requirement, and then get the unconditional offer. Or as Jen mentioned, you can apply with the conditional offer, but you have to clearly show how you are going to meet those conditions before your program of study starts so that you can start your program at the said date. Hopefully that answers that question.
And then Abdirahman, okay, so in Turkey from Somalia. So I actually just had to do a little research on this because we do not have a ton of students who are here from Somalia. And you are correct. So IRCC does not accept the passports from Somalia. There is a travel document that you can get. I can send you the link. Actually, I'll put it right into here for you. But you can look it up on the IRCC website. So there was a specific travel document that you could apply for in place of that passport to prove your identity for the study visa application. And then just jumping into the chat here, you cannot apply for student loans when you come to Canada, Richmond. You have to prove to the Canadian government that you have enough funds to study here. The student loans and bursaries, like there are some available for international students, but very limited amounts and definitely not enough to cover your tuition. Most of the loans that would come through for students, like our Ontario student loan program, are only for Ontario residents. So the funding comes from our tax dollars, so that only goes into Canadian citizens or permanent residents here. A lot of the funding is not available to temporary residents. So please be mindful of that before coming. And thank you for the good feedback, everybody. So if you were refused your visa because of the course, you could talk to admissions and apply to another course, or you could just explain to IRCC the reason why you want to take this course, right? As I mentioned, you want to make it make sense to them. If I need to do research, or can I do one outside my first degree? That would be a question mostly for your faculty, depending on what your program is and so forth. So you'll have to chat with them there. And please remember, if you guys can, to put these questions into the chat there. Yeah. Or into the Q&A, sorry.
Mhm.
All really good questions everybody has had today. So thank you so much for all your good questions. It's definitely keeping us busy.
Thank you, Jennifer and Sarah. With that, I think we have to wrap up today's session. And since there are no more questions pending, we'll just move on with closing of our today's presentation and bringing it to an end for today's session. So thank you so much for joining, and a big thank you to our immigration advisors for their guidance and insights. Remember, our International Student Services team is here to support you throughout the entire process, from admission to arrival and beyond. So thanks everyone, and we wish you all the best with your applications, and we hope to see you at Lakehead. So Jennifer and Sarah, any final words before we just bid farewell to our audience?
Just good luck with your acceptance and your applications. We're here to support you. Reach out if you have questions, and good luck. And we hope to welcome you very soon to our beautiful campus.
Yes, Thunder Bay is a beautiful city. Even our RISIA campus also is very beautiful. You have such a good team of advisors and people who are here to support you. You really will feel that small town vibe when you come here, and it might be very different. But as you can see in the photo here, we have beautiful summertime. It will be really nice. We live right on the lake here. And as Sarah said, we look forward to sharing it with you.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. You can connect with us on social media. You can find us at Lakehead International on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We hope to see you in our next live webinar. Bye for now.